Hello, MotoAmerica fans. It's time for another episode of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. You'll laugh, you'll cry, and you may even learn something from this unlikely pair and their special guest. The mic is yours, Paul and Sean.
Hello, MotoAmerica fans, and welcome to this latest edition of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. I am Bice, normally in Central Ohio, but today I'm actually on my way to Rehoboth, Delaware, and I'm going through Morgantown, West Virginia, which is not, I don't have anything against Morgantown other than the fact that it's where West Virginia University is, and I'm a Syracuse fan, and we used to be huge rivals until they switched things up. But I'm joined by Paul Carruthers out on the West Coast, MotoAmerica's communications manager. And Paul, I don't think you have anything against West Virginia at all, do you?
No, I don't know it well enough to have any problems with it, but it's I'm glad you're there, not me. How's that?
Yeah, it's a little hot right now. I'm kind of I'm a little heated up, but it's good because we're gonna have a good conversation today. We're going to talk with Breeann Poland, who is the marketing lead of the Americas region for Royal Enfield, and she's also global brand manager for the Continental GT platform. We've known Bree for several years. She's been in our paddock. One of the things that I always like to bring up with her is the fact that she managed a team a few years ago on which Cameron Beaubier got discovered by Yamaha and set him on his way to his 6 national championships, AMA championships, and obviously into Moto2 now. So, Paul, let's go ahead and bring Bree right in. Bree, I know we're going to talk to you about Build, Train, Race and Royal Enfield, but I hope you don't mind us starting off by talking about Cameron, since Paul and I both got to see him at Laguna Seca last weekend, and he's thinner than he's ever been. So, but he's pretty focused on racing. Again, thank you for getting him on his way to racing.
Yeah, I love that story. Everyone always asks like how that came apart. And he had just come back from, being over internationally for Rebel Rookie Cup. He was really having a hard time finding a team that he had confidence and faith in, and and his dad felt comfortable. And the conversation happened at a Sunday afternoon at Road America, and he was pretty dejected. And he said, "Hey, Bree, can we have a conversation?" And we literally sat with 3 folding chairs in the middle of the Road America paddock while my team was taking down our equipment after a weekend. And he's like, "I really don't know you that well, but I've heard good things, and I hear you, like to support the underdogs," which has always been my thing. Hence why I'm with Royal Enfield. And it just kind of came from there. To this day, I still adore Cameron. It was probably one of the best riders I've ever worked with, and I've been, in and out of road racing for 20 years. And he's the sweetest, most humble individual that I've ever met, and it's just been amazing to watch him transform after that, and getting that factory deal with Yamaha and seeing him do so well in Daytona Sport Bike, and then moving up to the big bikes, and then now at Cameron through every one of his adventures. So I'm so happy that I was able to be a small part of it.
Bree, we again, just before we get into the Royal Enfield, I apologize. I want to ask you one other thing about that during that time period, just because it's so interesting to me. I was doing PR for Yamaha at the time, and I remember distinctly, I mean, we had Josh Herron on the team, and it was sort of a little bit of an embarrassment of riches. He had just won the championship, and so your situation, did you actually talk specifically to Keith McCarty, or did Keith talk to Cameron? I mean, were you part of those negotiations in the beginning?
There were some conversations, what is your intention with Cameron? Where do you want him? Are you going to run a Yamaha program? Do you need, Yamaha support? My team at that time was kind of mix and match through, different OEMs, and it was kind of whatever effort I could pull together. I never expected to be a team owner. It was kind of thrown at me when I lost the person that, had, been my financial support. And he basically said, if you want to continue, you have to do it on your own. So I think a lot of people did see, and actually the conversations that I started having with Keith McCarty were about supporting Joey Pascarilla, who had rode for me and won the West Coast Championship for me, Super Sport Championship, when we had those mixed championships, East and West.
Right.
And that conversation started. So I started building my rapport, a relationship with Keith McCarty then, and they were offering us some help with Joey Pascarilla, which is really nice because we did have him on a Ducati at the beginning of that season, and the rules just weren't right for those smaller 600 classes. We couldn't get some of the, I guess, products passed through tech that we needed to ensure safety. So we switched Joey to a Yamaha, and that's when I really started having conversations just even about future riders and how they could support us. I've always been an underdog, so I've always, historically supported race teams like Buells and Ducatis and Triumphs that aren't necessarily, the Japanese inline fours. But I think Yamaha did see some progress or, some promise in, the Joey program. And then with Cameron coming on and like all of those things, it all just worked out at the end.
Yeah. So is the chronology with Joey? So he won Daytona 200 with P1A and Perry Melnichuk. Was that after you? So did you actually get Joey into the 200 kind of?
Joey was right after the 200.
Gotcha.
If I remember correctly. Joey is like, everyone calls him my emo twin. We used to look exactly alike.
I agree.
So, before the 200, because Joey and I have been really close for a long time, he said, Bree, if I win the 200, like, you have to get whatever tattoo I tell you to get. And I'm like, okay, Joey, well, you're not going to win the 200, but yeah, and then I'll give you a ride for the rest of the season. So when that little punk won the 200, he basically almost dropped his bike, ran over to me. He's like, all right, we're getting tattoos tonight, and you need to get this tattoo. And I'm like, there's no way I'm getting the tattoo he recommended. I'm not even going to mention it on the podcast. So moving forward, yes, we ended up signing him for the rest of the season, and we were racing in Sonoma or Infineon or one of the 500 names that
right.
that raceway was called.
Right.
Yeah. And Mike Metzger, the godfather of freestyle motocross, had just started like a travel tattoo company, and he showed up to that racetrack, and Joey's like, wouldn't it be amazing if the godfather, of freestyle motocross tattooed you for the tattoo that I wanted? So I have a tattoo on my left wrist now that is forever there, and it's a ampersand, and it has brackets around it, but it's from an album cover of a band that Joey and I like, which is Woe Is Me. So I will always have that memory for the rest of my life. I was one of Mike's first tattoos, so it probably could use some touching up. But it's always a good story.
It's and I just have to drop this in. This is a bit of folklore too. That's it's kind of like is it connected to Kevin Bacon in any way? This isn't, but except for when you hear Joey Pascarella and the Daytona 200, I always like to tell this story that bike that he rode for years, including up to even this past year's Daytona 200, there are still remnants of that bike somewhere in that paddock that's been involved in the Daytona 200. I know Ed Sullivan, who is the crew chief for Westby Racing, has had parts of that bike, and he and I talk about it every year. It's finally starting to get to the point where the legacy of that particular motorcycle is kind of been phased out, but it's been for years and years, well after they've gotten into a new iteration of the R6. Joey's bike was kind of pieced out. I think Jake Zemke actually got on the pole with that bike or part of that bike, but it's kind of a bit of folklore. What's that?
He might have.
Yeah.
Jake Zemke also rode for me at a certain point, or kind of. He was riding for a smaller team effort, but they didn't have the transportation. They just needed, a setup for them. So that's actually how I got really close. Jake Zemke's wife's one of my best friends to this day. But he was one of the riders that, kind of fell on hard times and didn't have a permanent team placement. So I took him under my mix and match canopy of riders that needed a home.
And now he's, of course, Cameron's and several other riders' agents with Wasserman Group. But interesting how everything's connected in the paddock, and we always know that to be the case. So let's talk about what you're doing now, and let's talk about specifically this Build Train Race program, because I know you've been working on it for a few years now, and it really came to fruition last year with American Flat Track, and you guys did amazing work with that program. And also we can also talk about how amazing it is that Johnny Lewis, who's one of my favorite flat track riders, has done really well on that Royal Enfield platform. So that's great for your company and your brand as well. But let's discuss how that's transitioning. This year we're doing build, train, race in our paddock, and we've got a group of girls that we met, ladies I should say, or females. I don't want to be disrespectful, but we got to meet them up at Road America with you, and every one of them is an absolute character and has a great story to tell. So let's get into that a little bit, if you can kind of give us the background on BTR.
So you guys know Melissa Paris is probably my best friend in life for
Yes.
everything. We've traveled the world together, and we started as enemies, absolutely hating each other, because at the time not many women were in the motorcycle paddock, back in the early 2000s. And once we decided that we were two rad ladies, that we had to be friends. And it kind of so we would sit in the paddock and we would always talk about what it would be like to have an entire female road racing team, from female team managers to riders to mechanics to really cool sponsors that focused on women products, and we never let that conversation die. And then when I joined Royal Enfield, it took a while to get that conversation going. One, we didn't really have a motorcycle that we thought we could go racing with, and it did start with the flat track platform with our INT 650. I can't call it the other name in the US because Honda owns the rights for the other name, and that's another story.
Wow. Okay.
So we decided to kind of do a couple small things. So we started with our Himalayan, and we contracted Johnny Lewis to convert a bunch of Himalayans along with SNS into flat tracks motorcycles that we can teach people how to flat track. And then my partner, who basically funds all of the adventures through his budget in the UK, his name is Adrian Sellers, was like, well, let's do, I know you've always wanted to do a program focused on women. What do you have in mind? And then we were going back and forth. And then one day I was like, I want them to do it all. I don't want them just to race. I don't want them just to do this. I want to give, a select number of women motorcycles to build. We'll give them the guidelines, we'll give them the platforms, we'll help find, a certain amount of sponsors. But I really want to show that women can build a race bike, to train on it effectively, and to be able to race and get decent times, and hopefully some of them will turn pro and we'll help guide them along the way, or they can win district championships. So when I was finally able to do it, I decided to go kind of small last year, because I didn't know how the program would be received by customers and fans. I didn't know how I could possibly manage it with all the jobs that I have within Royal Enfield, and I didn't want to fail at it, and failure is really not an option for me. So I handpicked 4 women that could be, I would say, contribute to the motorcycle industry, but in various forms. Obviously, I chose Melissa because she's been an amazing brand advocate since we've come to North America in 2015. I knew that she had some flat track experience, but she could obviously go through some training and really push herself. Also, obviously, she also likes competition. Then I chose, a female photographer that really started highlighting the women motorcycle movement. That's Lana McNaughton. I hired a female from Canada that had her own DIY motorcycle shop, and she is really good on the service aspect and really getting more women and men to wrench on their own motorcycles and kind of give them a platform. And then I chose an existing district rider, which is Jillian DeChesney from Minnesota. And the pandemic happened, and everything got messed up. All the news and everything. We finally got to do a couple trainings with Johnny Lewis at a few facilities, and we raced a few rounds. And the reception from my company internally, from potential sponsors, from fans, was overwhelming. It was more than I bargained for, more than I asked for, and it ignited a lot more in me. And then finally, I said to my partner in the UK, let's go road racing. And he's like, okay. You sure? It's a little more detailed, and it requires a little bit more work and budget. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to move Melissa from the flat track program. I want to hire her as a mentor. I want her to do all the build outs, work on the design with each lady, help me identify sponsors, because I was getting emails from every kind of product company you could ever imagine within the motorcycle industry that wanted to be a part of this effort.
Wow.
And we didn't have to do a lot of outreach, which was great because it showed, the potential that this program has. So I have people like Olin's, who I begged for as a team owner for years to support my programs. And one thing is all these product companies really want to show support of women in motorcycling, and women in motorcycling is the fastest growing segment of motorcyclists in the world. So it's important for companies, not just motorcycle manufacturers, but it's important for product companies to reach out and market towards women. What better way to do that than a build, train, race program? The one thing that was still a variable is I knew that I wanted to do a video application process. I didn't want to handpick the women this time around. I wanted to see how many people were potentially interested. At the end of the day, I think I had, and this was with no paid media or advertising, and this is just through our social network, around 250 applicants.
Oh
And
my
it was
gosh. Wow.
it was super hard to narrow down the women. And I do get some flack. A lot of people have asked me, like, there's lack of diversity, but honestly, we didn't have a lot of diversity apply. It's not like I was trying to like make it all women that were 5'2" to 5'4" that all come from Irish backgrounds. I really, and hopefully after the exposure that we're getting through MotoAmerica, Revzilla and Cycle News are really doing a great job at promoting this program, that we get more individuals next year when it grows, that we can have a larger diverse set of riders. But I also want to keep our current riders, and I want to work with them over years, and hopefully maybe they move to bigger bikes in the future. That's fine. The intention of this program is to bring more women into the world of racing, whether it's flat track, whether it's road racing, and to see them succeed and grow throughout that sport. And we will always support them as long as they maintain being a good human. The one thing that we weren't sure is where we were going to race. And that was like the biggest thing. We were going to race in like a smaller club series, but would it get the, the brand, the visibility that I wanted it? Were we going to try to race with Road America? Would MotoAmerica, would they even want us to do that? Would they just laugh at us? And I have to give Lance a lot of credit. He blows up my emails, or he did constantly, and then finally he had a conversation with the powers to be, and they agreed to it, and I almost fell off my chair because, again, that's like a dream of mine and Melissa, is to have a females race program race in MotoAmerica. Now, granted, they are women racing against women right now, but none of these women have ever road raced before. And I think sometimes when people get into a sport, it might be easier or less intimidating to train with people of the same sex than it would be, with men or female. And that's why I wanted also Melissa as the mentor, is I wanted a female mentor to train them and work with them on the track so they could all be vulnerable together. And yes, women are emotional, and I get that. So I don't want them to feel like they couldn't be emotional or open if we threw in, big men, brunting men with masculinity everywhere. So hopefully some of them jump on bigger bikes in the future. You might see them in, a 600 class, or whatever, or we continue racing and we continue supporting a series with MotoAmerica, but we don't know. Our first race is obviously at Brainerd, which I haven't been to, I think, since 1999, and I think that was the first time I ever went and worked a road race. So I'm excited to go back to Brainerd. I'm excited to see these women race. They are blowing up my phone every day. We did add a second training, so the women are flying to Wisconsin on the 24th and 25th to do another track day, 2-day track day with Sport Bike Track Time, who have been amazing to us. But the women just want to keep riding and keep improved.
That's all right.
Sorry, I talk a lot.
That's fine. You've answered all my questions, but so there's seven women. Yeah, I know you did the one track day. My question, was there a big difference between, as you said, and none of them, I think you said none of them had any track experience at all. Was there a big difference between the best and the worst one, or were they all pretty much in the same boat?
There is a difference.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
There is. And it's also, so it's not just about skills, but how seriously or why the women joined the program or wanted to be a part of the program in the first place. And you'll see that come out in an article that Revzilla is doing, because they interviewed the women. But so we had, I'm going to mention CJ. She rides the white bike, the 77, and you guys, obviously saw her at the debut. She had some bike issues for the first day of training when we were at Groton, and wasn't able to ride her bike, and she was helping other riders, and she was trying to, work on the issues on her bike. The second day she went on the track, and Melissa was there, maybe her husband was there, not gonna say for sure. But we all looked at each other and like, there's no way she's never been on a road race bike before. Like, no way. Like, she was blowing all the instructors away. They started timing her. By the end of that day, I think she was only like 8 seconds off a lap record in a bike in her category.
Wow.
And they were like blown away by it. Then we had some women that were historically fast on the street, but didn't necessarily know the right skills for, applying that on the track. So they have a lot of potential. They just need to kind of, refine their skills and take away their street knowledge and then really learn how to, be competitive on the road race track. We have Becky Goebel, who is a chopper rider. She's never really rode a bike with a front brake. So just teaching her more confidence in a completely different style bike. I actually think she has an amazing ability if she allows us to tap into it. I see her being a front runner if she wants to be. And then we have Kayla, who is a sidecar monkey, and she's been doing that armor racing for a while. I think there's going to be some acclimating on how she can come from being that person on a car or a platform or whatever you call it to a road racer. I do think all the women have potential. I do think that there is a varying difference right now. But we'll see how it goes. I mean, once the flag drop, you never know.
Bree, go ahead, Paul.
Sean.
Oh, I was just going to say, Bree, we had gotten some video that we've been running on our social media, and to your point, I could definitely see from those interviews and what they were talking about of the build, train, race. Some of them are more interested and probably more adept at maybe the build part of it. To your point, maybe the train they all kind of have to get involved in. None of them maybe are as real adept to start with at racing, but they're learning it real quick. But I can definitely see, to your point, that there's some variation in what they're trying to get out of the program. They're all going to race, obviously, but you know what I'm saying.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's kind of cool. I mean, I do think I do hear what you're saying about the diversity, but I still think there's a little bit of diversity. I mean, everybody's got a story to tell. I will absolutely tell you that Becky Goebel I'm full on afraid of her. I don't know. She's just a little spitfire, man. She stands up on that bike. She's got all those tattoos, and I've looked at her Instagram and I'm like, oh, that's just so far out of my comfort zone. I love her. I got a chance to talk to her and I hope to get to know her better, but I think that's just because, my God, she is just a way different than me. So it's really fun.
I'm scared of her and she rides for me. So I totally feel you on that one. Yeah. Yeah, and then you have Alyssa, who is like the most huggable, sweetest, welcoming, hilarious human being. And I don't know if you guys are following her, but right now we're doing a vote for your favorite road race build right now. Oh. And Alyssa's videos to get people to vote for her are some of the best content I've seen from anything or anybody in a long time. So if you're not following Alyssa and following her Instagram stories, you need to start.
Yeah, I actually got a chance to meet her, strangely enough, at a brewery that's just a few miles from my house. And as it turns out, she was able to actually get sponsorship from Docent Brewery, which is in San Juan Capistrano. And so I met her briefly at the brewery one night because I'm friends with one of the owners. And he was like, "You work for MotoAmerica, right?" And then he took me down there and we got to talk for a bit. That was before the Road America event that she actually didn't get to go to. But yeah, she's a very nice girl. And so from that, I mean, these girls are allowed to go out and drum up some of their own personal sponsors, right?
Absolutely. So what Royal Enfield did, and it's by no means a small contribution, is we gave them all brand new Continental GT 650s.
Wow.
We provided them a very small budget just to kind of get it started. And then we did find team sponsors, products that we truly believed in that were mandatory for the women to use. So Dunlop tires, I can't even tell you the amount of support we're getting from Dunlop, but wow. So all the women have to run the same compounds. They all get a certain amount of tires to use throughout the season. Then S&S designed a specific 2-in-1 race-ready exhaust for us, which was mind-blowing, but they also did rear sets. They also did a few other components. And S&S has been an amazing partner for the brand, period, since we've joined, so it was only fitting that they would obviously be our exhaust sponsor. but other integral items. Maxima Lubricants came on board and sent every woman part of the program a huge care package, but also gave us more lubricants than I possibly know what to do with. So half of my warehouse is filled with Maxima product just to make sure. I'm about to announce our tool sponsor. I waited to do that because I wanted to make sure I had all the tools and the toolbox that they provided us. We have SBS and Vortex who have really stepped up. Olin's gives us a very good support. Arai Helmets came on board and is supplying all the women's helmets for the season. And I'm pretty sure I'm probably forgetting one, and whoever it is, I'm terribly sorry. I'm still jet lagged from 3 weeks travel. So, but outside of that, obviously the women have to get, leathers for themselves. They have to help pay for some of the parts. So they were allowed to find sponsors. Now, obviously, it can't be something that, from another OEM. And if they can't have something that's offensive culturally or politically, support them. But a lot of them have done a great job at finding sponsors. And then some of them really need that extra help and guidance on how to drum up that confidence or be able to know how to approach a sponsor. So Melissa came up with like a basic deck, and then myself and my team kind of refine the deck a little bit for them, and then they can use that to reach out to sponsors. We've helped them figure out how a sponsorship pitch needs to go. But all of them do have some of their own individual sponsors, whether it's for a product. Some of them I have linked up with dealerships, especially on the flat track side. So I have dealers, Royal Enfield dealers that have come up to support a lot of my flat track ladies. I would like to try to do that more for the road racing side as we move forward, but Royal Enfield also pays for like all the travel expenses, all the transportation. They also help buy some of the products, so I bought all the women their chains if they needed them. I didn't, Royal Enfield did. We all got them gear bags from Allbeck. It's a new company that's coming up. So if anyone needs like gear bags and, really cool sport travel bags, they really helped us out. So every woman just received a fancy embroidered build train race gear bag. We provide them 2 to 3 mechanics because we don't want the mechanics doing the work for the women. We want the women to do the work and then to have mechanics guide them. It would be really easy for me to have a mechanic for each of the women, but right now I think it's really important that they understand their bike builds and understand the process of when I come off the track, this is not working right. This is what I need to do to change it. We want to be able to enable these women. So if they do go out club racing, they don't need someone to come on wrench on the motorcycle for them. So we do have mechanic support, but it's at a minimum. And if, in the future, if we expand the program and the women understand the motorcycle and the builds, we might, assign, a mechanic per. And I know race weekends get kind of hectic, but we don't want to give these women too many crutches. We want to be able to let them, spread their wings on their own.
Yeah. It's funny, I'm getting a little message on my thing saying my internet's unstable, so hopefully I'm still connected. But hey, Bree, I want to wrap it up, but I do have a question that I want to be specific about regarding the bike itself, the platform, the NT650, because, from what I understand, it's a parallel twin 650 4-stroke. Is it fuel injected?
Yes, and it's the women in road racing are riding the Continental GT 650, not the INT.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
No worry.
Okay, yeah. So it's the same engine, but it's a different frame. Is that kind of the deal?
It's different. So we have clip-ons for the GT.
But, I was amazed. I mean, I'm not saying I doubt the brand at all. I'm not trying to say that. But when Johnny kind of entered, I was thinking, well, this is a cool novelty. I mean, Royal Enfield is such an iconic brand over the years. And I'm like, then it kind of went from him just trying something out to now the dude's like actually winning races and stuff with it. So it's a very solid platform. So now to see
1
that.
year.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, incredible.
Yep.
No, it's incredible. So, I mean, it's a very capable bike, and it's a pretty big bike for those female riders to be on too. I mean, a 650 is no joke. That's got some displacement there. So, they should be definitely putting out some speed when they're on that bike, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. It's very impressive to see where Royal Enfield has come as a company since even I've joined. And to where they're at now, and having a bike that's winning, the hardest flat, half-mile flat track race in what I consider the world. So it's crazy. what has happened, and it's no small effort from our engineers in India, our engineers in the UK, and even like David Lloyd and what he's doing to help like just bring that bike up in development. It's amazing to see the progress that we've made as even though we're massive in terms of global sales, that 90% of that's in India, to see what we're able to do in the US, which is a very discerning market, and win races. And you have no idea what's up for the future.
Well, it's amazing that when you guys started, you guys had that 500cc single, and it was like, that's a cool little bike. It's got a real throwback vintage look to it. But now you guys with this twin, it's like, man, that's a classic engine design and fuel injected and everything. So, I mean, I can't wait to see what else is coming out from you guys in the future. It's going to be great to see. But, right now, I mean, just like I say, that's a very capable motorcycle that you've got there. So all credit to you guys.
Thank you. I'll relay that back to our product strategy and development teams.
Yeah, please do. But
Will do.
but Bree, I'm like I say, I'm deteriorating here a little bit. Hopefully everybody can hear me again. But Paul and I really appreciate you being on. We're looking forward to seeing you up there and seeing the ladies race at Brainerd. What a track to start out with. That that track's a fast one, so the training will help them going into it. But all power to them, and we're definitely going to be paying attention, and we'll be covering it like all of our other classes when we get there. Not it's a couple of weekends from now. It's the end of July, beginning of August. So thanks so much for being on with us. And I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to say in closing, real quick.
No, I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to talk about this platform. It's very near and dear to my heart and Melissa's, and the more people that learn about it, hopefully the more people we see want to participate and support it moving forward. So thank you.
Yeah, Bree, I want to
Fantastic.
step in and say thanks as well, and also congrats for being able to put something together, especially when it's something that you guys had a dream about and you actually made it happen. It's not everybody gets to do that, so enjoy it while it lasts. And yeah, you've done a good job.
Well, thank you very much.
All right, you guys have a good rest of your week.
Thank you.
You too. Bye.